Hello, hello. So the next one, it's ranged for season 4 of Dragonflight, and this tier list is designed for people who are either beginners, complete new beginners of the game, and want to pick the right thing that's gonna last, not have to swap because they didn't understand that it was harder than it seemed, and to spread a little bit of information that I feel like is required about certain specs. But I like to start off with the tier list finished and just talk about it. You feel free to do whatever you want. And I'll start with Evoker. I think Evoker is very simple, very extremely powerful. It is doing absolutely insane amounts of damage at the moment, and it's actually kind of meta. If you like, well, okay, let's try not use the word meta, but like, it's doing really good. It is finally Dev Evoker's time to shine. Finally. And it is deserved. It is fun. It is great. There's only like two caveats of you gotta get used to the shorter range, and you need to be good on your defensives because they are not defensives that are gonna save you after you've taken damage. They're gonna save you before you take damage, but they save you like nothing else. They are crazy powerful defensives, and yeah, I mean, yeah, there's got a bunch of utility. It's simple utility. It's not complex stuff like put it down hunter's what is it called? Binding shot. Putting down binding shot and then telling the tank to pull out of it so they stun or you know what I mean. You just do it and just be careful because you're very close to melee. Try and be like super maximum range as you can. Speaking of maximum range, balance to it. I mean, you're just standing far away and just having a good time. Like that meme with the. Aaron. Nope, never mind, can't find it. Anyways, balance to it is a great spec. It's a bit janky with the only caveat I would say, okay, two caveats. You need to be dotting everything up. Just make sure of that, but that's really not too much of an issue. If the tank pulls correctly, just takes a tiny bit of aggro on each mobs, then you just moonfire everything up, moonfire, 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 and then just sunfire when everything's clumped up together, and you're good to go. And you don't even have to dot ever again because it extends the dots, casting Starfall. And you just build and spend, pop your cooldowns. There's Primordial Arcane Pulsar, and I really do have to emphasize that you do have to get a weaker of 4 Primordial Arcane Pulsar, which is the choice node between Orbital Strike or that, and it procs Incarn when you use enough Astral Power. Situated right here. Every 600 Astral Power, you gain Celestial Alignment, aka Incarn, and you want to be tracking this. You want to be making sure that you are popping everything with this. I'd say optionally as well, Star Lord, but don't be like beating yourself too much about trying to min max this thing. Just make sure to like when Star Lord is running out, start like when it's close to running out, like 5 6 seconds or so, just spend all your astral power and then go and build it up back again. And by the time it runs out, you'll be casting Star Surge and Starfall to build it back up. Okay. And then Elemental currently with its set bonus is just Lava Burst, and more Lava Burst. It's a very simple rotation. It's very fun and satisfying. The only caveat I would say with it is that you might if you fall in love with this spec, you might have to learn some complexities about it in the future because they're not reworking elemental, not yet at least, maybe in midnight or something, or in the middle of War Within. But if the of course the tier set bonus is going to change in the next expansion, and you might have to pick up some talents like Ice Fury or running some elemental blasts instead of Earth Shock, which is loss of mobility and stuff like that. And just keep that in mind. Like you might, but by that time you're going to be a master at the spec anyway. So I would highly recommend you play it now if you really enjoy it. It is doing a lot of great damage. MM Hunter, I would also put it over here, but it's not as insane. It's very good. Like, don't let people get you down about Hunter. Hunter is very powerful, very good. It just doesn't have the correct rate buff for Mythic Plus situations, blah, blah, blah. Like, not stuff that we have to worry about in lower keys. You do a whole lot of burst. It is not complicated at all, but there are some stuff that you can learn about the spec that make it more complex and give you more damage. But you don't have to focus on that. You could pick up simpler talents and just pop your cooldowns and just go crazy with the aim shots. Great. And bunch of utility for yourself, like feign death and immunities and healing, and they're much tankier. Hunters much tankier than they seem. Just keep that in mind. They buffed that. They changed that. So I want that. I want that dispelled. This notion of it being squishy. And the specs that take a little bit of time to get used to, a little bit of time to work up. Demonology and Destro, they kind of are the same thing. You know, they're warlocks, they have the same utility. But Demonology takes a little bit of time because it has some buffs that it has to manage, and it has some play styles about it that, like, once you get to a boss from mob pools and stuff like that, or in raid, it changes a lot how you play. You also have your imps and how to manage them. It's not super crazy what you have to do, but you know you do have to get a little bit used to it. And the big one also is no mobility. Like you don't have really any mobility that makes you able to uh you have this is like the ultimate spec of, if you're picking this, you are about to learn how to maximize your casting potential at at the minimum amount of loss of damage, because you lose a lot of damage by playing warlock and just running around all the time because stuff is underneath you and you weren't prepared for it. But you got gateway, you got demonic teleport, demonic portal, the transcendence thing, you got burning rush, and I mean you're super tanky. Like just put that thing on. I mean honestly, just put it on, and put it on at the beginning, and you can always cancel it while casting other stuff, because it doesn't cancel your casts, and it doesn't cost a global cooldown to turn it off. So just keep that in mind. Same thing, yeah. But they play a bit different, right? The reason, like, Destro is much more simpler, but there are some complexities definitely based on what talents you pick. And the big one is that Infernal is a very huge cooldown, very powerful, but the tank needs to pull around it. Absolutely mandatory that the tank pulls big pulls for your Infernal. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. You're not gonna do any damage. You're much better off playing demo if the tank is just pulling 5 mobs at a time, next mob, 5 mobs at a time, next 5 mobs at a time, boss, blah blah blah. You're gonna have much more fun on demo. Alright, Arcane. Arcane is touted as the most complex spec in the game, and it's getting absolutely insane reworks when it comes to that. It's going to become much simpler and much more fun and much more flashy in the War Within. However, if you're someone who wants to try it out right now and enjoy it, uh, it takes a bit of time. Maybe it's like in between hard to master, it takes some time. Uh, but I would not say it's like the most insanely difficult. It's just the initial, how do you set up your rotation? And once you get that rotation down, every 45 seconds, you're going to be doing this rotation, or 30 seconds based on shifting power. And you just do big damage and you have a good time, right? But you gotta keep that in mind. Like sometimes you're just not gonna be doing great damage, and sometimes you're gonna be doing insane damage. That's the whole point of Arcane. You're not consistent damage. You are big damage. And other than that, I mean, if you just get the rotation down, you're good to go. And I have a guide somewhere on my YouTube channel that actually goes specifically over this. It's season 2, I think, or season 3, but it's the exact same thing. Nothing has really changed, because season 4, there's nothing that changed in season 4 anyway. So, hard to master. I would say Fire Mage is one of those specs that just like everybody knows. Like this thing, the main character of the entire game, you know it, blah blah blah, and it has some. It seems so simple. It might be a bit of a noob trap even, but it seems so simple. It's just get 2 crits in a row and cast an instant cast Pyroblast. But there's so much you can do with it. It's so like you can spend hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours playing this thing, and still find new things to do, how to maximize your damage, especially with the Sun King's Blessing, where you cast 8 Pyroblast or Flame Strikes, and then the next one you got a hard casted normal, and then it gives you a combustion. That changes, and the double lust currently. This is all getting reworked in the next expansion, so keep that in mind. It's gonna become much cooler, I think, in the next expansion. But just keep it in mind, it's so much fun. It is really a lot of fun, but you are going to if you just don't get it, if you're holding on to combustions, if you're not pressing your Sun King's blessings immediately when you get them, if you're waiting on your shifting powers, you're gonna be losing insane amounts of damage, like so much damage. So you really have to be very consistent, otherwise you're losing massive amounts of damage. And Shadow Priest, even though the rotation is kind of simple. I mean, the single target rotation is your AoE rotation. You just put dots on everything. But the reason I would say it's hard to master is all of its utility and power, right? You've got the master spell, so you have to understand how to use it. You've got Fade, which is actually a stealth ability. If you're playing Priest and you don't know about Fade, go check out Fade and read exactly what it says. It's a stealth. Yeah. And you got Mind Soothe, and you got even Leap of Faith, even to try in some skips. And you got, I mean, Power Infusion, right? You gotta macro that into something, and you gotta like change it, and like, and on top of that, it changes all the time. It gets reworks like every other patch, every 0.5 patch is getting reworked. Like, there's a lot to it. You could play this forever. It's insanely powerful. It's really good, but it is hard to master. It's very hard to get down. And Shadow Priest players, I would also like want to put this in Noob Trap, purely based on future, where healers play Priest, and then they think like, oh, we have healers at the moment. I'm just gonna swap to DPS for a little bit, and then they just find out like, oh man, I'm absolutely not having a good time here. I'm doing absolutely no damage. I have like this is terrible, but because it's much more harder than the what you think when you just like, oh, I'm gonna play holy. It's simple and easy. I'm just gonna play it and have a good time, right? So keep that in mind. But there are some super powerful resources out there. The only problem is they tend to focus heavily on maximum damage, simulations, mythic rating, and the top 0.1%. Like like people like Public and stuff like that. They just obviously just talk about their experience in mythic rating and in mythic plus high keys and stuff like that. It doesn't really talk about. He doesn't really talk about or explain the difficulties about the low end with this spec. So just keep it in mind, right? Let's say the main thing is if you're gonna play this, dot everything up and wait with the Shadow Crash until the tank stops. Put down your Shadow Crash. While you're waiting, just put dots on everything. Just vamp touch, vampiric touch, absolutely everything. And even if you put too many vamp touch, it doesn't matter. And just refresh them with your Shadow Crash. Okay? Okay. My biggest noob trap in the world, absolutely, BM Hunter. So many people join the game or are beginners or join through other people and they think, oh, BM Hunter, it has cute pets. I love pets. I'm gonna play it. And then they do no damage at all, right? And I'm not trying to discourage you from playing BM Hunter. I just want you to understand that BM Hunter is not just run around and spam your abilities and you do great damage, right? It's so simple, it's so easy. It's not. It has some stuff that if you don't keep this stuff up, you're gonna have a bad time, right? Biggest one is Beast Cleave, Bestial Wrath, and your Barb Shot. Right, so the last part of Barb Shot there sends your pet in a frenzy, increasing its attack speed by 30% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. It is mandatory that you keep this up at 3 stacks at all times, right? Permanently, all the time. Losing stacks, obviously between pulls, you're gonna lose stacks or intermissions and stuff like that. That's obviously, you can't do much about that. But if this drops in combat, you're losing 90% of the attack speed of your pets. And I want to show you here. All right, here we go. So your Beast Cleave is, I don't know what that was, but your Beast Cleave is 25% of your damage, right? Your pet's auto attacks I don't even know how to find them. I think it's in here. It's 20% of your damage. Claw, stomp, melee, kick. Like your pets are your damage. Stomp is beast cleave essentially. So where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Is this kill cleave, right? This is AoE. This is hang on, give me a second. All right, I found it. It's a different icon. It's Stomp right here. Uh, Stomp is based on casting Barb Shot. And another one I found is that Kill Cleave. Every time you kill command while Beast Cleave is active, you do AoE damage. And you can see it's 9% of his damage, 9% of his damage. His pet is 22% of the damage. The AoE of the pets is 25% of the damage. You know, you understand, you get, right? Your Barb Shot doesn't really do anything. Kill command, this is just a single target one. This is the Kill Cleave. Does immense amounts of damage. And if you're kill commanding, when you don't have Beast Cleave up, you lose a lot of damage. And that is a very big important thing to keep in mind when it comes to this spec, is that you have to keep Beast Cleave up at all times in AoE. You can't drop it for any amount of time. Any amount of time. If you drop it, you lose massive amounts of damage. On top of that, Bestial Wrath, your 90-second cooldown, is reduced by 12 seconds every time you cast Barb Shot. That is insane. Like you have around well, let's just check. Like buffs. Let's see. Beast Cleave. Let's just I cannot write it. Wrath? What's it called? There, 50%, 46% of the time you have it up, right? So it's very important because of the cooldown reduction of this, and getting getting two charges of Barb Shot every time you Bestial Wrath. Again, it's multiplicative. The more Barb Shots you do, the more cooldown reduction you get, the more Barb Shots you get. The Beast Cleave is your entire AoE. You do not do AoE if this is not up. So you have to at least get a weak aura for the Frenzy, 8 seconds. You don't really have to get a weak aura for the crit chance increase, but because it's the same amount of seconds. So just the Frenzy or the crit, you gotta get a weak aura for your Beast Cleave. And you cannot drop for any amount of time. And you have to have enough focus to kill command every single time it's up. So sometimes you just have to wait. Right? You sometimes just have to pull your resources, wait for the kill command. Don't spam multi-shot. Don't spam your I think it's just multi-shot. What's the thing they do? Right, I found it. Cobra Shot. Do not spam too much Cobra Shot. It is like 110 casts, and it's just 0.77% of the damage. Versus, double the amount of cast of Barb Shot, and it's way more damage. As an example, like multi-shot does absolutely no damage, but you gotta keep the Beast Cleaves up. If you don't keep the Beast Cleaves up, you lose all of this damage. So actually, multi-shot is actually doing 25% of your damage in a sense. So if you want to play BM Hunter, I do recommend it. It is the best pet collecting class in the game, spec in the game. It's speedy. It can have access to a barrage, which is super nice for legacy content because you just spray shots all over the place and just kill everything. Then you just get like a looter rank to loot everything for you, or you can even have your pet loot for you. I think it's a glyph or an ability you can buy in the hunter slots from the Legion class order hall, and have a good time. Just get a weak aura, get some buff tracker, something for your Beast Cleave and for your Barbed Shot frenzied thing. Okay? Alright, let's move on. Frost Mage, because I've seen some people think, oh, I want to play Mage. I love Mage. But I don't want the complexity of fire because it's too complex. And I've heard some bad things about Arcane. I don't want to play Arcane, right? I understand it. Arcane is different playstyle. Once you get it down, it's quite fun and it's quite powerful at the moment. However, Frost Mage is very powerful, but it's not easy. It is not easy. They are all hard. Fire is a bit harder. then Frost, then Arcane, in my opinion. But it's more like, this is 99% hard, this is like 95% hard, or 90% hard, and this is like 85, 80% hard. You know what I mean? Just keep it in mind, like it's super speedy. You are running Glacial Spike. Frost mages seem to love Glacial Spike, so you gotta keep that in mind. You now have combo points, essentially, literally. You have 5 icicles, and you gotta spend them on the Glacial Spike. And you gotta understand some minor things like having a flurry on the target makes them freeze, guaranteed, essentially a guaranteed proc with Glacial Spike. If you have the correct amount of crit, you cannot have more than 33.3%, if I remember correctly, or might have changed, amount of crit. And you cannot miss any cast, right? It's super fast, and you cannot miss any cast. Any amount of casts lost means less cooldowns, means less damage, means less frozen orbs. And if you miss your blizzard or frozen orb, then it's less blizzard and frozen orbs, which means less damage. You know, understand? And you kind of need a tank to pull around it, right? But it's a great spec, but it's very fast. It's very speedy. You gotta be very on top of it. And then the ultimate biggest noob trap. I feel like this is kind of a failure on Blizzard's part. It's augmentation, the support spec, and the problem is that the way it's balanced right now, uh, if you're doing everything absolutely perfect to the T, maximum damage, maximum buffing, and your friends or your pugs are also doing not just the DPS, also the tank, sometimes even the healer, are doing maximum damage, then you'll be doing the same amount of damage as they. You're not going to be doing more damage overall through your buffs. You're just like about average, decent. The power of augmentation is the defensives, is the buffing the healer, giving it more intellect and giving it more healing, and buffing the tank, giving it a lot of power, a lot of defensive power, a lot of safety. And it's also super tanky. It has some defensives that also hit the entire group. It has some super unique ability like worm stones and the allowing healers to cast while moving. But it is it is not easy. This is the hardest spec in the game if you really want to get good at it. If you just go into dungeons and you just press your premonition, man, I do not remember, prescience, prescience, something like that, and then you press your Ebonite and then you just spam abilities, you just not like, you have to be tracking the cooldowns of your allies. You have to be running a specific comp that complements augmentation. You have to have the tank pulling around your 2 minute cooldowns. You cannot miss any casts because you have heavy cooldown reductions on spamming your casts. And yeah, I mean, just crazy. Like I feel like this is not how support is supposed to be played. I feel like support should be more like, oh, it's someone just like super simple rotation, like 1 or 2 buttons mostly, and you can like do support stuff, like you can CC stuff, and you have good CC, and you maybe have like a battle res, or you can have like a big absorb shield, or even like a a party cheat death, like if someone dies in the party, then they're like resurrected, the cauterize or something, and you know what I mean, like support stuff, like more buffing your tank and healer instead of buffing the DPS, you know what I mean. But this is what Blizzard decided on, and so here you go. This is my tier list for what is really gonna serve you well. And if you're still watching this, wow, thank you. And or you just skip to the end, it doesn't really matter. Nothing changed. You can still look at the tier list as it is from the beginning. But I also want to say, I keep in mind about the future of the game as well, right? I know from a fact that Fire Mage is never going to become a 1-2 button spec that is just unbelievably simple, and it's always going to be hard to master. And Devastation is probably most likely, I mean, I can't predict the future, but Devastation, be balance and the caveat with elemental, I want to like that's why I emphasize that it can change in the future. So currently it's easy and quite powerful, but in the future it can become very 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 complex. But devastation is very simple and very powerful and very fun and very flashy, very cool. I just wish dragons would be bulkier and you could be a tank, but here we are. All right, see ya. Thank you for watching, and please tell me if there's something you would like to see or something. I could make some guides on how to make a simple build for these talent specs. Any of them, I know all of them. The only thing I'm not quite super sure on is rogue, but I know the basics. I think I can figure out a super simplified version that gives you the most amount of damage for the least amount of brain power. All right, see ya.